Save 10% with my code BOBBY10 on raw, organic, grass-fed and grass-finished, freeze-dried organ meats from Grassland Nutrition. Link in the description box. Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. If you're new, my name is Bobby. Guys, today a very interesting video. We're gonna watch the WaMahyayaShow with their first episode of The Ego. Coming myself from a background in which I explored different faiths, different spiritual systems, psychedelics such as mushrooms, LSD, ayahuasca and whatnot, I of course have a huge interest in understanding the ego. Back in the day, I wanted to dissolve my ego. From the New Age perspective, the ego was always the enemy and I want to get rid of it. I of course understood after a while that you can never really get rid of your ego. This is the name of the game. In this world, you will always struggle with your ego, but at least you can learn to distinguish what the true self is and what the ego is. From an Islamic perspective, I don't know anything about the ego, how Muslims see the ego, what the ego truly means to a Muslim, and I hope we can see this in today's video. Let's have a look.
Who am I?
Oldest
I
question.
have lived more than 50 years of life, and in those years I have spent countless hours teaching, researching, and writing. Searching for answers to some of the most mysterious questions of human life. But after 50 years had passed me by, I realized that the most important question had yet to be answered. Who am I? What makes me who I am? Am I the sum of my thoughts and beliefs?
No,
Or of my positions and expertise?
neither.
Am I my schooling and my degrees? My job and my bank account?
Definitely
Am
not.
I my family history or my social standing? Or am I none of these?
None of it, bro.
After 50 years, I began a journey of introspection, peering within, searching for my true self. I started to realize that many of the things I had previously thought of as my true self were an illusion of my mind, and that my mind was largely driven by my own ego. Each time I dived deeper, I came closer to my spirit, to the source, to my soul, to the breath of God that is in me. And the more space I put between myself and the demands of my ego, the greater the emotions of happiness, peace, and love I felt. But these common emotions felt different, somehow less fleeting and illusory than they felt before when I was under the sway of my ego. I have come to realize that death is not the great misfortune of life. The great misfortune is that people live and die without truly finding themselves, and so pass their lives as if they had never truly lived, because they were living with the false self. They were living for their egos.
This is what I came to understand myself as well, and now especially as a father even more so. You simply see that your kid doesn't have that ego yet. Now he starts developing a will, but he's still not identified with the ego itself. He's not feeding the ego, he's not living for the ego. The ego is just a shell of insecurities essentially, and you try to appeal to it consistently with buying new things, getting new girls and whatnot, simply feeding a gaping hole that can never be satisfied. Ultimately, true happiness can only come through knowing yourself.
We come into this world with an innate sense that we are an integral and inseparable part of a larger whole.
Yes.
Our basic sense.
Babies don't even experience that they are a baby. They experience that everything is I.
Teach us about the external world. And we start to form a mental image of ourselves. This virtual image is usually reflected in how others perceive us. We see ourselves in the eyes of those closest to us. If they see in us intelligence, beauty, and goodness, this becomes what we see ourselves to be.
True. It's called mirror neurons, right? We're mirroring, we're consistently just having a feedback loop with the outside environment. And that tells us who we are, which we are not though. But this video is not really Islamic.
But
Till
is
now.
this mental image
Let's see.
truly what we are?
A subscriber sent me this video, so
Or is it just the ego,
we'll see.
the false self that starts to form early on in our lives? Is there a deeper self awake within us?
I claim
that
yes.
knows that the true self is too great and expansive to be confined by a mental image or by layers of flesh? It is the true self of which God tells us when He says, I breathe into him of my spirit. Here then begins the struggle in every one of us. The struggle between the mental image that is made up of other people's perceptions and the truer self that lies forgotten deep within us. And that struggle continues for much of our lives.
Indeed.
Who am I? We continue to live with the ego, and little by little we ignore the voices within that tell us of our deeper beings, until those voices eventually fade into silence.
This video is very deep, man. It makes me appreciate my previous psychedelic experiences. I'm at a point in my life where I really do not want to touch them anymore. I'm old enough, I've been through it, but nevertheless I'm very grateful for those experiences in which my ego completely dissolved, where no I was left anymore, but only pure consciousness, where I could see that I was an integral part of everything around me. The whole universe and I were essentially one. Everything was in symbiosis and there was no separation, and moreover, there was no thought bubble anymore that was telling me who I was, how I should be, or how I shouldn't be. All of those expectations were lifted off me completely. I found myself for a brief moment in time being the way that God created me, simply being my true self. But the true self, when you try to be your true self, you cannot be it anymore, because now you're trying to be something. You're essentially running after a mental image. But your true self is a state. It's a state of being. Matter of fact, it is just being. Nothing more, nothing less. It is like looking at a newborn, and this newborn doesn't try to be anything. In my psychedelic experience, I was looking at a tree, and the tree started speaking to me. I know that sounds absolutely crazy for most people, but ultimately the message of that tree was that we humans always try to be something. We try to be cool, we try to be strong, we try to be whatever. But a tree doesn't try to be anything. The tree just is a tree, was a tree, will be a tree. Many trees are hundreds of years old, and they've always been a tree. That applies to everything in nature. A mountain is a mountain, a dog is a dog, a cat is a cat. It's just the human being that always tries to be something that he or she is not.
On a subconscious level, we know the ego is fake, and thus it is vulnerable and in constant need of defense.
Yes.
We defend it because we fear that our egos may be exposed and that we may have no other self to hide behind.
The ego doesn't want to die, and this is when you experience an ego death, it actually feels like you are dying. On a psychedelic experience or in a deep meditation, you will feel as if you are dying, but matter of fact, it's just the ego shutting down. That's why it has the self-defense mechanism.
The root of all human suffering.
Yep, I agree. I call the ego the devil.
Who am I? I might not be what I believe myself to be. I'm not my positions or my talents. I'm not my skills or my vocation. I'm not my degrees or my education. I'm not even my outward appearance or my opinions.
Nope. All of that
This
will
might
fade.
sound strange, but even if you don't believe it now, you will surely believe it soon. We will all see the truth on our deathbeds.
Indeed, man. You're not taking your flesh body with you.
Death will strip us of all that is not us. All of those illusions manufactured by the ego. I have seen it in my medical practice in the eyes of all of those whom I have witnessed in their final hours. Those moments of which God says, "We have removed your veil. Thus your sight this day is acutely clear." If the eyes could speak in those moments, they would be the best of teachers. They would say to us that the secret of life is to die before you die, and to discover that there is no death.
Yes, that's what the Gnostic Christians used to say, that's what the mystics said, that's what the Orthodox Christians say to this very day.
In the ego within us, we can live with the real selves that never die.
Amen.
Are not the 5 prayers, if duly performed, the best practical way to draw out the ego from within?
That could
Our
really be, man.
prostration should not be confined to the physical prayer. Our hearts should be in constant prostration throughout our lives. I realized that most human misery and corruption on earth originates with the ego. It is the ego that expelled Satan from heaven when he said, "I am better than Adam. You created me out of fire and him out of mud." It is the ego that drowned Pharaoh when he said, "I am God Most High." It is the ego that caused the earth to swallow the arrogant Qarun, Korah. It is the ego that surrounded the ungrateful man with the 2 gardens, as narrated in the Quran. The ego is our real enemy. It is the source of our pain and suffering.
That's for sure. When I had my ego death, I saw that I wasn't myself. I definitely wasn't Bobby. Bobby was a name given to me. So then I zoomed out essentially and I saw that I wasn't my body in totality either, because my body will decay. When I die, I'm going to leave my body. So I saw myself somewhat as a soul, but not even that. I saw myself boundless essentially. And when I was Bobby in a state of sadness, I realized, wow, I'm imagining to be Bobby, and now I'm imagining to be Bobby in a state of sadness. Everything seemed like an act to me. I all of a sudden saw everything like a movie, and every emotion that I would go through, every suffering, I realized just as a facade, just as an absolute illusion. Nothing seemed real to me at all anymore. This is why those experiences are not for everyone, of course. They can be very frightening, but they can be extremely liberating as well, because you discover that you're nothing that you thought prior to them.
The more I searched and read, the more I realized that the ego is what makes us forget that we were created from a single soul, that we are an inseparable part of a vast and intricate whole, in a universe that is ordered and beautiful. The ego is what makes us forget that our love for the world around us is the greatest manifestation of our love for our Creator and ourselves. But the ego tricks us into believing that we are separate from one another, that our own selfish desires are paramount. All maladies of the mind sprout from such conceits of the ego.
Exactly, man, this is what happened to me, but I'm not unique here. This happened to millions of mystics. When they come out of the experience, they realize that they're not separate entities at all, that even the sense of separation is simply an illusion of the ego.
I am convinced that the state of unconsciousness that humanity lives in today will lead to more suffering and more bloodshed.
For sure.
Unless human beings wake up and realize that we are made of a single spirit originating with the breath of God. That we are spiritual beings on an earthly journey, and that our destinies are intertwined and governed by divine universal laws.
100%. That's the real test, if you ask me.
I came to the conclusion that the most important endeavor of every person on earth is to vigilantly guard against the ego within, to observe our thoughts and emotions, to create space between our consciousness and our ideas and feelings.
That we paradise.
In doing so, we become free from defining ourselves through anything other than our true selves. And we restore our mastery over emotion and thought.
Yep, but if you look into the media, this is exactly what they don't want you to do. It's the opposite. They want you to get obsessed with the ego. They want you to become obsessed with material possessions. They want you to become obsessed with sexuality. So you get further and further and further away from your true self, and you get closer and closer to the monkey.
What we need is a revolution, a new awakening, a heightened individual and collective awareness, a new age to reclaim our souls.
God willing, man.
There is no escaping the need of this awareness. The alternative is a loss of our soul, followed by a total destruction of the human race.
Once you've woken up of that ego illusion, you start seeing the ego in other people.
This journey
and it seems very ugly to you. Not the person itself, not the body of the person, but you can really see the ego, and it's so ugly.
It is both mine and yours. It is our collective purpose. It is the way to my salvation, your salvation, and the salvation of all humanity.
Alright guys, this is it for today's video. Long enough as it is, I'm gonna cut it off here. Please let me know in the comment section what you guys think. Was this Islamic enough? Or would you say that this goes against Islamic thought and this is deviancy? What do you guys think? I personally resonate with this a lot due to my experiences. On that note as well, guys, let me know in the comment section if you want me to speak about my psychedelic experiences. Is this something of interest to you? Then let me know and I'm gonna talk about it in separate videos. Alright, but this is it for today's video. If you liked it, leave it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed already, guys, please do so. And if you want to support this channel, all the links are in the description box below, Patreon links, etc. As always, may God bless you all. Much love and peace.